want to talk about that a little bit more is because you said that we're not even aware of a lot of the things that we do believe. And it's really hard to get ourself there. Would you recommend, like, how do we change some of those deep ingrained beliefs when we're kind of not even aware? Is it someone that can help guide you through it, a coach, a mentor? How does someone change some of those beliefs? Because that's kind of where you have to start, right?
Yeah, that's really true. And that's why I make the comment that I work as a coach, and even coaches need coaches
Mm,
because we need somebody who can look at our lives like someone from Mars would in order to be able to see things. And I've been blessed. I have a friend who is a coach. He's a business coach. We talk with each other, every month or so. And it's interesting because she's very, very good at uncovering those hidden beliefs. And we'll be having a conversation about business, and she'll say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, back up and replay that for me." And I'll go back and I'll replay it, and she'll say, "Where did that limiting belief come from?"
hmm.
And I don't even realize in the speech that I'm giving that I've got a limiting belief there. And she said, "Well, yeah, but you said this is a limiting belief. What is driving that behavior?" And we all need people in our lives, whether it's a professional coach or whether it's just someone, in your family, your husband, your wife, who knows you intimately enough to be, and whom you've given permission to be able to speak into your life and say, "Hey, wait a minute, time out. I don't understand this. Let's dig in and figure out what's going on." A lot of times people work better in that realm with a coach because it's sometimes hard to be really transparent in some of the more difficult issues with those that you love and those who are really close to you. It's hard to open up, especially for men.
Yeah.
It's hard to open up and talk about those things, but I think that a coach can really help you unpack that, because they're sort of sitting back, like I said, from like that person from Mars, and they're looking at your life in a completely different way.
Hmm.
And they themselves see life differently than you do, so they can challenge you in some of those areas.
Yeah. I was talking to my wife the other day, and I love coaches. I think I mentioned, or mentors, coaching and mentoring. And I'm always looking for coaches if I want to improve certain areas of my life. Doesn't have to be business. I've had business coaches for years, but now I have a personal coach, and we're talking about family or marriage or health or whatever, I want to grow in. And it's just all, to balance it all out. And but my wife, she hasn't really been around a lot of coaches, and she was talking about a coach versus a counselor. And I've been kind of like encouraging her to possibly to get a coach because she's working on some things. And what would you advise, like, that person out there who's never had a coach before, like, and they're like, I just don't understand, what would you advise them to do?
Um, I think when it comes to coaching, I think there are a couple of things that are important. One is that I think there's a misconception about coaches in that so many people look at coaches, they look at me as being the answer man. I come to you and say, "Gary, this is my problem," and you're going to say, "Brett, this is your solution." That's not how a good coach works.
Mm-hmm.
A good coach is not an answer man. He's a guide. And so a coach is there to help guide you through a process and listen to you, to ask you questions about things that are designed to probe into where you're going. And most of the time, you're the one who's going to come to the conclusions about what's going on.
Mm.
And that's what we really want, because if you were to come to me and say, "Gary, I have this problem," and I say, "Brett, this is what you need to do," especially if we've only been together for 10 minutes, you're going to look at me like I've got three heads and say, "Well, how can you possibly be coming to that conclusion?"
Mm-hmm.
But if we sit for a while and we talk through it, and you come to a point where you say, "Gary, I think this is the root of what we're dealing with," you've got some skin in the game because you've come to that conclusion, and it's much more likely then, as we develop an action plan going forward, that you're going to take action on it. The other thing I think it's important is to make sure that when you're considering a coach, that you find a coach who's willing to spend some time with you for free.
Mm.
I offer a free exploratory session that goes between 30 and 60 minutes. And really, my desire in doing that is to answer two questions. One is, do the skills that I have apply to your situation? Do I think I can really help you? And if not, then I want to refer you to somebody who can.
Mm-hmm.
And I will have people who will come to me and say, well, can you help me in this situation? And it's like, well, yeah, I can, but it's really not in my wheelhouse. I can certainly figure it out because I've been in business for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I understand human behavior, but rather than putting you through the agony of doing that, let me refer you to a friend of mine who is a specialist in this area. He can help you, and you're going to be able to get results quicker. You're going to wind up spending a whole lot less money, and really, it's better to do that. And the second question I'm trying to answer is: do we resonate, in our personalities? Are you the type of person where we're going to be able to come together? Because, hey, let's face it, when you're working with a coach, depending on what that coach is working with you on, you have to open up and you have to be honest. You have to be transparent. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. And you're not going to be vulnerable with me if you don't trust me.
Mm.
And so, can we build that trusting relationship with each other so that you're willing to really tell me what's going on and realize that from my perspective, it's not, I'm not making any judgments here. I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of it is what it is. Now, what do we do about it?
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, definitely, guys. If I would just say, just try it out. You never know. If you never try it out, then I just say, yeah. And it's like you said, Gary. My coach, he doesn't fix my problems or tell me what to do, but it's just kind of working through that process and just bouncing these ideas and meeting together. It's awesome. There's a book in your book. You also talk about this law, and it's called the Law of Intentionality. So talk to us about that. Like, what does that mean? And we're getting back to purpose. So what is someone who is obeying or living through that law of intentionality?
The law of intentionality is really pretty basic. It starts off, and really the first thing it communicates is that each one of us is responsible for ourselves and for our own personal and professional development. It's not your husband, it's not your wife, it's not your professor or teacher in school, it's not your boss, it's you. And the second part of it is that you have to be intentional about your development. So in other words, you have to understand the gaps that exist between where you are and where you're going before you can begin filling those gaps. And a lot of times I find people are out there and they're doing a whole bunch of stuff, but they're doing the stuff that they're already comfortable with. They're not digging into the more difficult issues because they either are afraid of them or they're not aware of them. And in that whole model, you have what your purpose is, and you have the law of intentionality, but there's another law, and that's the law of awareness. And the law of awareness says you have to know yourself before you can grow yourself. So what we're really doing is we're saying, okay, I have a purpose that I want to achieve. Here is where I am today, and here's where I want to be tomorrow. What are the gaps in there that need to be filled? And some of those gaps are skills gaps. They're things that we need to learn. But more often than not, they're personal gaps of who we must become in order to get to where we want to be. And once we understand the skills gaps and the personal gaps, then we need to be intentional about taking responsibility for those things and putting a plan in place to work on closing those gaps. Because until we close those gaps, we're not moving forward toward the attainment of our purpose.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. So we're just kind of moving on. So just kind of getting back to purpose, like if someone's working with you and you're going through these different things, is there like, have you seen just an aha moment? Like all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, I found my purpose, and then you start working through that. Is there something they come away from you? They have this document, this personal mission statement. What does it look like when someone finds their purpose?
I'll give you a quick example. About 7 or 8 years ago, I was working with a young woman who was actually referred to me by one of my other clients. And she had come out of a career in corporate America and had started basically a home healthcare business. And she sort of stacked the deck against herself when she started, because she gave herself a year to get the business on its feet. And that was pretty much the financial situation that she was in, that if she didn't get the business profitable within a year, she was going to have to go back to working a regular job. And when I met her, she was about 8 months into that year, and she was really struggling because her business wasn't growing. And so as I sat and talked with her about it, she had come out of a corporate career primarily in the human resources and financial arena. And I asked her, I said, Diane, I said, I'm having a real problem bridging from where you were in corporate America to having a home healthcare business. What's driving this whole thing? What is it that, why do you really want to do this? And she hadn't really thought about it a lot, but as she thought about it, she said, well, she said, I think the thing that's really driving me, and she began to get excited about it as she talked about it, was she said, when my parents were elderly, we had tried to have in-home health care for them, my sisters and I. And she said, didn't work out very well. The people were not high quality. They weren't paying attention to the details. My parents weren't getting the level of care that they needed. And so she said, as a result of that, we were constantly switching people, switching firms, trying to find this sweet spot of what would work. And she said, the thing that's really driving me in this business is to be able to provide that level of care so that the people I'm putting in people's homes, in the homes of the elderly, are going to treat them just like their kids were, if their kids were there to take care of them. And the whole thing just energized her. She started getting really, really excited about it. And I said, that's one of the key missing ingredients, is that, you have to have passion for what you do, especially when you're starting a business from the ground up. If you don't have passion and you don't have that why that's driving you to do this, it makes it much more difficult to be successful. And then sort of the second phase of it was sort of shifting into the business aspect. And I said, so talk to me about your target market. Who are you really talking to? And she said, well, I'm talking to the seniors. And I said, you got the wrong target market here. And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, you don't need to be talking to the people you're going to be caring for. You need to be talking to their kids, because in the vast majority of circumstances, their kids are the ones who are holding the purse strings. They're the ones who are making the financial decisions. And once we got her clear on why she was doing what she was doing and began to refocus her on the right target market, her business took off. And she ran a successful business for about 7 or 8 years, and just last year sold it. And went on to do some other things. But that's the impact that you can have when you walk people through that purpose and get them to write it down and put it on their mirror or put it on their refrigerator and read it every day until it becomes so ingrained in them that they can't imagine living life any other way.
Thank you so much for checking out the Brett Snodgrass channel. If you like this video, please slam on that like button. And if you really like it, then subscribe to our channel here. And remember to leave us a comment below, and I'm going to try my hardest to reply to all the comments. Thank you guys so much. This is why I do what I do. Every single week, I come out with content that focuses on success, freedom, and living out your purpose. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.